This is Jim Howard with Trinity Security Allies. We're going to get started here in a minute. In fact, we got 1 minute left before it's 8 o'clock. We're really excited about the training that's going to happen tonight. This is, even though we've talked about this before, this is going to be new. And so we're going to get started here in just a second. I've got Wendy helping me out. Hello, Wendy. Are you there?
I am here.
All right. So how we like to do this, we have a Q&A button down at the bottom of the screen. Mine is at the bottom of the screen. Yours may be up at the top. If you have a question or want to ask Wendy something, please do it at the Q&A. We sometimes have people that do chat, and we kind of chat sometimes get lost, and we don't want to lose anybody. So do us a favor, if you have a question, go to the Q&A, and we're going to go ahead and get started. You know, a lot of times when I do these presentations, I get asked, you know, how can I justify having a safety team in our church? And I think one of the things that people need to really look at is that this is nothing new in the Bible. This is something that's been going on since the beginning of time. Adam was told to tend the garden, and when you talk about tending the garden, that means to protect it also, to take care of it. So even back in the beginning of time, Adam had a responsibility of making sure that he took care of the garden. Now, when we start to talk about this, I think this is something that is very important when we take a hard look at it, is there is a sign of the times. April 8th of 2020, Department of Homeland Security came out and says, when you begin efforts to reconstruct services and welcome congregants back into your houses of worship, please also review your security plans and ensure procedures are in place to protect your facilities and visitors. Now, they go on to say that although there are no imminent or credible threats at this time, there have been an increase in online hate speech intended to encourage violence, or use the ongoing situation as an excuse to spread hatred. Well, I'm telling you right now, we're in some really trying times, because this is just one of these things where we really have to be concerned with what is going on in our country because of everything that we're seeing right now. It's just, I cannot tell you how much we see, and I see on my end, how much evil there is out here. And Satan would just love to do something to a church right now that would just cause the nation to just start to really get into a war that I see that we're having right now against good and evil. Now, it goes on and says additionally stressors can caused by the pandemic. Well, they need to put in there the pandemic incidents that have happened here in the United States. Of course, we're talking about the Floyd case. And, you know, they say that may contribute to an individual's decision to commit an attack or influence their target of choice. Well, we're seeing an attack right now. We really are. Again, we have no information to suggest such attacks are imminent or even likely. Instead, we are looking to provide you useful information for planning for restoration of normal operations, whatever they may be. We have seen some attacks. We've seen arson on churches. We've seen people complain. We've seen people go in and start videoing churches that have already opened up to make sure that they're doing the CDC guidelines, because what they want to do is they want to go out online and they want to complain and talk about how that you're going to be spreading the disease, and that it's just flat out wrong. So we have to make sure that we're prepared. Now, ministers are really kind of good about, you know, wanting to know how do you figure out that churches need safety teams? Well, just like I talked about with the Garden of Eden, one of the other things that you have to look at is David's mighty warriors. If you go to 2 Samuel 23, 8 through 38, you see where David names his mighty warriors. And he talks about the mighty 30, and he talks about the 3. They think that there might have been around 37 warriors that he listed that were a part of his executive protection team. Or in other words, a part of the team that protected all those that followed David. Because if you remember the scripture, when David ran away and hid from Saul, he had a large following that started to follow him. And so in order to protect these people, he had to have a safety team around him at all times. So this, you can really easily go back and point to this as kind of one of the first ones that we truly see a lot of information on. I mean, like I said, they name them, they tell who they are and how mighty they were. Now, one of the things that I want to make sure that we're perfectly clear here is they also knew when and when not to attack. David had several occasions to kill Saul, but he took it that only when the Lord really pointed it out that it needed to be his time that he would do these things. And it troubled him, it worried him. So I think a lot when we talk about safety team people, we need to make sure that we understand the love that David had for Saul and the love that David had for his enemy, a person that was trying to kill him, but he was still doing what God's will is. And we need to make sure that we're following God's will in this. This is not something we take lightly. And this is something that you have to make sure that when you talk to your staff, your pastors, your elders, your deacons, that you're talking about Christ's love and setting up the safety teams, and not one of these where you want to go to war all the time. This is very important. When we started the ministry, we started looking at different Bible verses to kind of base it on. And of course, the first one I came to and started to study was Nehemiah. Now, I know that most of you know the story of Nehemiah. He was a wine taster for the king, and he had found out that the walls around Jerusalem had been destroyed, and really that the city was in disrepair, and he became upset. And so the king went to him and said, "What would you like to do?" And he said, "I'd like to go back and rebuild it." So Nehemiah goes back to rebuild the wall. And when he first leaves, the king gives him the supplies, but he also gives him cavalrymen. Now that means people to protect him as he takes these supplies over to Jerusalem. But once they get to Jerusalem and unload the supplies, the cavalry go back home. Their job was not to stay there and protect Nehemiah as he's rebuilding the wall. And as he started to rebuild the wall, of course, we know the story that the locals, the people started to plot to kill the Israelis, the Israelites. And so David didn't call the king back up and say, "Hey, can you send those troops back?" He went to the Lord. And so after he prayed all night to the Lord, he came up and said to him, and this is in Nehemiah 4:13, he says, "Therefore I stationed some of the people behind the lowest points of the wall at the exposed places, posting them by families." Now, this is very important to me because he could have easily said, "I posted them by warriors so that people could stand and protect them while they did their work." But no, he said he posted them by families with their swords, spears, and bows. So in other words, he wanted the families to start to take care of each other. Now, our church is our family. So this is very important when we look at this. And then Nehemiah goes on to say, "After I looked things over, I stood up and said to the nobles, the officials, and the rest of the people, 'Do not be afraid of them. Remember the Lord.'" Now he gave credit to the Lord. "Remember the Lord, who is great and awesome, and fight for your families, your sons and your daughters, your wives and your homes." Like I said, I'm going to go back to this one more time. This is very important because this is telling us we need to protect each other in these times. We need to make sure that we're looking out for each other during these times. During this COVID-19 pandemic that we've had out here, I hope and pray that you've reached out to some of your elderly or some of those that have the pre-existing conditions that might not be able to get out, and you've reached out to them and asked them if they're okay, if there is something that you can do for them. This is a part of the safety team, even though we're not at the church, is to make sure that we're still taking care of those that go to our church. They are our families. They're our brothers and our sisters, our daughters, our sons, our wives, and our homes. We need to make sure that we protect them. Now, Nehemiah goes on, and I think it's very important that we continue this because a lot of times people think that we as safety team members are wanting to jump out here and be warriors all the time and go after, just kind of, we're not really policemen, but policemen of the church. Well, but Nehemiah once again gives God credit because he says, "When our enemies heard that we were aware of their plot and that God had frustrated it, we all returned to the wall, each to his own work." Now, the reason why this is important to me is that when we talk about that, we set up our safety teams. When the wolves come in, just like when the sheepdog were out protecting the flock, just like when the shepherds were out protecting the flock, when the wolves started to come toward the flock of sheep, they would get turned away by the shepherd or the sheepdog. Now, how do our enemies heard that we were aware of their plot? When they walk in and see that you have an organized safety team, because trust me, we've gotten business from people who have walked in to churches and seen a safety team in action and went and said, can I talk to your safety team leader who trained you? And when they tell them us, they contact us because they see how organized they are. And we need to make sure that that's another important part of this. We need to make sure that when we're there, how do we let our enemies know that we're aware of their plot? We go up to them when they walk into our door. As soon as we see something that we feel uncomfortable about, a person that we do not know that we talk about in our training as an anomaly, we as the safety team members might need to walk up and talk to these people. Now, I don't want to contradict myself, and we'll get into threat profiling. We talk about people that are hurting. Maybe the safety team member is not the first one that should respond to that person. There's a different thing. But if we think that this person may be a possible threat, then we need to go and talk to them. And our enemies will know that God has frustrated their plans, because we will be the ones, we will be God's messengers, and we will be talking to that person that may be that possible threat, and they will know that we are there, ready to take whatever action is necessary. Now, Nehemiah goes on and says, from that day on, half my men did the work, while the other half were equipped with spears, shields, bows, and armor. The officers posted themselves behind all the people of Judea. Now, as the safety team members, we need to make sure that our job is to make sure that we're protecting those who are working for the church. Now, at our church motto is, our church statement is connecting people to Christ. Well, when we connect people to Christ, one of the things that we need to make sure is that we protect those that are connecting the people to Christ. And so I want to stress this, that we make sure that we're helping those that are working in our churches, who were building the wall, those who carried the materials and their work with one hand and held a weapon in the other. And each of the builders wore his sword at his side as he worked. But the man who sounded the trumpet stayed with me. Now, Nehemiah, this is kind of important. I'm going to talk about trumpet here in a minute. And so it's one of these things that when we look at this, there's the Bible just all the way through is just putting this together for us and showing us where we should be setting up our safety teams. Now, when I say this, and each of the builders wore his sword, one of the things that we do is we train our staff to make sure that they know what we're doing and what to look for. And so when we get into training like threat profiling, our staff and our volunteers are the builders of our church. So they need to be equipped just like we are, so that they can see what to look for and what to be aware of and contact us so that we can sound the trumpet if there happens to be something that is of importance to us. Now, we get into the next verse that we like to look at. We talk about Isaiah 62:6. And it states, I have posted watchmen on your walls, Jerusalem. They will never be silent day or night. You who call on the Lord, give yourself no rest. Now, watchmen in the Bible were guards responsible for protecting the towns and military installations from surprise attacks from the enemy and other potential dangers. Ancient Israelite cities often stationed watchmen on high walls or in watchtowers. Their job was to keep watch and warn the townspeople of impending threats. The Hebrew word translated watchman means one who looks out, one who spies, or one who watches. Sometimes watchmen were scouts who looked out for approaching friends as well as enemies. The Bible also refers to watchmen as a spiritual sense, and I think this is very important. God appointed prophets as spiritual watchmen over the souls of his people. Son of man, I have made you a watchman for the people of Israel, so hear the words I speak and give them warning from me, which leads us into Ezekiel. But one of the things I kind of wanted to point out here is that when he talks about when the Hebrew word of watchman means one who looks out, your safety team members need to know really, truly just about everything that is going on in that church as far as families, as far as visitors, as far as anybody that darkens the door of their church. And why I say this is intelligence information that we now know everybody. We should be working toward being seen. I know a lot of churches don't like that idea. Oh, let's keep them hidden. No, we are there for a reason. We are there to protect the church and also to help the church. When we talk about safety instead of security, there's a lot that goes along with that. If somebody has a question about where to go to talk to somebody about baptisms or things like that, we should know. We should know because, one, they may see us standing there with our radio on and think that we are a person of authority. Well, guess what? You kind of are, but the right authority. You're under the authority of God doing what you're supposed to be doing as a safety team member. So as watchmen, it's not only our job to watch out for the threat, but it's also to watch out for our families. Watch out for those that may be distraught. We see a person that's standing over in the corner crying. We need to go and get somebody to go over and witness or administer to that person crying. It's just not all about threats. Too many people want to be policemen and they're not. We are watchmen. Yes, we protect the church, we protect the flock, but we're also watching out for other things that we need to be aware of and leery of and helpful for. And the list just goes on and on and on. I saw one of our medical team members one day observe a guy that was very unsteady on his feet. And he was quick to jump over before this guy went down and get him a chair to sit in so that he didn't fall down. That's what we need to be paying attention to also. You may look at that and not think of it as a threat and just think of it as an old guy just, a little unsteady on his feet. No, there was a possibility of this guy going down. And this is why we call ourselves a safety team, because we extend that to what we're looking for, not only the safety of the church, but the safety of the members and those that come into the church. So as watchmen, make sure that you're paying attention and one who looks out or one who spies or one who watches. Please don't be creepy people and watch people and make them feel nervous. Don't put on your sunglasses and stare at people from across the hall, but be out there and be talking to people. Be out there, be in the crowds, listening to things, hearing people talk. If you see something that makes you feel uncomfortable, get another safety team member in there to help you out with it and see if it is a threat or somebody hurting that needs to be attended to. Now, he says in here, Son of man, I have made you a watchman for these people. This comes from Ezekiel 33. And when I found Ezekiel 33, it was one of these things where I was just really shocked that I'd never seen it before, because this is God's call to safety team members and plus those who are watching over the church. And let me tell you, once you notify your leaders of the church of what I'm telling you here today, I'm going to tell you some things that they need to be a little aware of, because God is telling them right now, you need to be protecting my flock. So in Ezekiel 33, 1 and 3, it says, the word of the Lord came to me, Son of man, speak to your people and say to them, when I bring the sword against a land, and the people of the land choose one of their own men and make him their watchman, and he sees the sword coming against the land and blows the trumpet to warn the people. All right, this is telling us right here, the sword right now is against the land. It is against us. We're in some trying times right now, and there's a spiritual battle going on that I can't stress enough about. And I hate to be the guy standing on the towel on the wall warning people, but I just have to tell you that we're getting ready to get into some really interesting times as far as protecting our church. I really see it coming with everything that we have going on in this country and in this world. So first off, we got to pick a watchman. We make them the watchman. That's your safety team leader. And then, of course, he's going to pick his people. We talk about that later. So when we come up and follow on in Ezekiel 33, 4 and 5, 4 says, then if anyone hears the trumpet but does not heed the warning and take the sword and the sword, I'm sorry, comes and takes their life, their blood will be on their own head. Okay, listen to what it's saying there. I go and warn you that something is wrong, and you don't do something, and the sword comes and takes their life. It's not on you. We're going to think it's on us. Trust me. If we see something that's going to happen and we go and warn the church, and we feel later on that we could have done more, we're still going to feel that. But God is not going to hold you responsible. You've warned them. Now, this is not only talking about a threat or something like this, but this is also talking about sin. And we're going to get into that in a second. Now, 5 goes on and says, since they heard the sound of the trumpet, but did not heed the warning, their blood will be on their own head. If they had heeded the warning, they would have saved themselves. We need to be in there in the church, and we need to be watching out for things, and we need to be warning the church. We need to be guiding the church. We need to be a part of the church. This is what we talk about, is that the safety team needs to be an important, intricate part of the church. Because if we start to see something, when we're getting ready to open back up again, churches are coming to me and asking me, what do you recommend? We have a list of guidelines that we like to pass out to them. Have you done this? Have you talked to your insurance company? What is their response to this? What are you doing? How many servers do you have? We go through a whole bunch of things. So we're helping warn them about how to be safe in the church. If you're having a big function, you want to be included in that so you can warn them if you see something that seems like a danger, so that you let them know not to be doing these things or watch out for these things. We used to have a big carnival, and we would tell them, we need to make sure that we got law enforcement in here to help us, because we're going to bring in clientele that really isn't spiritual, and we need to make sure that we're watching for them. We go into Ezekiel 6, and it says, and this is where, like I said, I think you need to go and talk to your pastor about this, because right now, until he turns you over to being the watchman, he is the watchman. But if the watchman sees the sword coming and does not blow the trumpet to warn the people, and the sword comes and takes someone's life, that person's life will be taken because of their sin. But I will hold the watchman accountable for their blood. We need to make sure that we understand that we have a responsibility. The church has a responsibility that when people walk in your doors, that responsibility is that we have to protect them. They have a reasonable expectation of safety when they walk through the doors. The liability issues that you will face if you do not have some plan or procedure in place will be a lot worse than if you said, listen, we tried and we prepared for everything that we thought might face us, but this took us by surprise, or we didn't see this, or we didn't think this would happen. But you did work out how you handle lost children, how you would handle a fire, how you would handle a medical emergency, how you would handle domestic violence. You put that down in your policies and procedures, how you handle this, and that protects you a little bit more than having nothing in place. And you have to make sure that your safety team knows about it and that you're doing the training. Now, Ezekiel goes on and says, Son of man, I have made you watchmen for the people of Israel. So hear the word I speak and give them warning from me. When I say to the wicked, you are a wicked person, you will surely die, and you do not speak out to dissuade them from their ways, that wicked person will die for their sins, and I will hold you accountable for their blood. But if you do warn the wicked person to turn from their ways, and they do not do so, they will die from their sins, though you yourself will be saved. Your safety team members need to be godly people. Your safety team members need to be people with the gift of discernment, so that when they see people that are doing things that are wrong, they need to be able to be witnesses to them and talk to them about their evil ways and see if they can help them through this. We need to be ambassadors of Christ also. Not only are we the watchmen and watchwomen, I'll throw that in there because I know that there's a lot of ladies that are out there as safety team members, but we are those people that need to make sure that not only are we watching for the threat, but we're watching for the souls of those that we love and that we protect. So as I said this again in Ezekiel 33, 7-9, there's a lot of extra burden that once you read this, God has laid it upon your heart, and you need to make sure that you follow through with this. And if you give this information to your leaders of your church and they still do not want create a safety team to watch out for your people that come, your members, then really you've done what you should have done. You're the one that gave the warning. And if something happens, it's not on you. Even though that might not make you feel any better, I just want to know that I'm right with God. And once I know that I'm right with God, then I will work with helping other people. Now, when we get into this, we look at this is something that I think we need to be paying really close attention to, because right now, this Ephesians 10 through 12 is so important. And then we're going to continue on with 13 through 17 with Ephesians. But Ephesians 10 through 12 says, finally, be strong in the Lord and his mighty power. Put on the full armor of God so that you can take your stand against the devil's scheme. For our struggle is not against flesh and blood, but against the rulers, against the authorities, against the powers of this dark world, and against the spiritual forces of evil in the heavenly realms. Department of Homeland Security has warned us that there are people out here that are angry. There are stressors out here. There's domestic violence going on. We've seen an increase in the suicide hotline calls. There are people that are hurting out here. There is so much hurting and just anger and evil that is out here that we need to make sure that we're paying attention to what is going on, the temperature of the country, the temperature of our neighborhoods, the temperature of the people that are coming into our church. And I'm not talking for COVID-19, but I'm talking about we're looking for those that may be mad right now at God and maybe wanting to take their anger out on God. So these are things that we really have to pay attention to and we really have to watch. Now, Ephesians 6:13 through 17 goes on and says, therefore put on the full armor of God so that when the day of evil comes, you will be able to stand your ground, and after you have done everything to stand. Stand firm then, with a belt of truth buckled around your waist, with the breastplate of righteousness in place, and with your feet fitted with the readiness that comes from the gospel of peace. In addition to all this, take up the shield of faith, with which you can extinguish all of the flaming arrows of the evil one. Take the helmet of salvation and the sword of the Spirit, which is the word of God. Safety team leaders, safety team members, you need to be inside that Bible, and you need to be studying the word of God to know where he wants you and how he wants you to serve for him. Because if you truly do not feel led to be a safety team member or a watchman or a shepherd or a sheepdog for the church, you're in the wrong position. Because there's a whole lot of different things that people think that you should be doing, like active shooter training, where we want to make sure that we got all of our guns out and we're ready to go blazing. That's not what we're there for. Could it happen? Sure, it could. Evil could come in the door just like that and just, have that mindset when they walk in the door. But the thing that we're looking for is the evil that is in this world, and there's plenty of it out here right now. And we need to make sure that we're going to stand steady and be ready to make our stand and stand our ground when the evil comes. We have to be prepared. So I found this verse about maybe 8 months ago. And when I found it, I was really kind of surprised that I'd never seen it before. But we were doing a study and I came across it and I was just like, this fits us. And this fits everybody that is listening on this webinar and everybody who is watching their flock, because this is just something that it is God's promise to us. And when I see God's promise in things like this, it very much excites me. The first time I read it, it just took my breath away. I had to sit down and reread it again because I was like, are you really saying what I think you're saying here? And what this is telling me is that God has a special place for all of us who are the ones that are watching the flock. 1 Peter 5:2-4 says, be shepherds of God's flock that is under your care, watching over them, not because you must, but because you are willing as God wants you to be. There's a big statement right there. Not because you must, but because you are willing. I say this over and over and over again. If God has not called you to do this, you're in the wrong place. If you feel like you're doing this for a sense of power or for warring spirits, you're in the wrong place. This is something that you need to be praying. just like this picture of the person on his knees, that he is a warrior. But we are doing this not because you must, but because you are willing, as God wants you to be. Here's the other thing. You have to make sure that it is in God's presence that you're doing these things. Not pursuing dishonest gains. This is not there because it's an ego trip. This is not there because you're trying to pick up the ladies in the church. This is not there because you think it's a power that you have over people. It is not there at all. It is not pursuing dishonest gains, but eager to serve, not lording it over those entrusted to you, but being examples to the flock. We need to make sure that people see Christ in us every time they see us, not only at the church, but on the outside. One of the things that I used to do when somebody would come up to me and want to be on the safety team, I would go and look at their Facebook page. And if you're out partying all the time and got alcoholic beverages in your hand every time I see a picture of you, I got to question where your heart is. We are servants of God. Now, I'm not telling you can't have that adult beverage, but it's not to the excess, and it's not everything I see on Facebook. Please understand, we have to set these examples. We have to make sure that we're being examples to the flock. And when the chief shepherd appears, you will receive the crown of glory that will never fade away. That excites me so much because I know he has me in the right place and that he wants me to be doing this for him and that he appreciates this and that when I go home, I will receive that crown. I'm not doing it for the crown. I'm doing it for him. But it's really nice to be appreciated, and you know what that means. And it's really nice when people come up to us and tell us that they appreciate what we're doing. So understand, this is because it's just showing his appreciation for us being faithful shepherds. So I want to open it up for discussion right now. I did see somebody a minute ago raise their hand. I'm not really for sure what that was about. Wendy, do you have anybody that's asking some questions?
I do not have any questions right now. Bob Pyle did raise his hand. I'm not sure. Bob, do you have a question? You type it in the question and answer box. I don't see anything.
Okay. Well, we respect your time, so we're going to go ahead and start to close it up. We're going to go through a couple of things that is happening right now with Trinity Security Allies. We appreciate if you just hang on for a few minutes so that you can kind of see that the devil is out here. Evil is out here. I would really like you to go to our webpage, TrinitySecurityAllies.com, and take and read our posts, our blog this month, which is now the time for a Christian revolution. We felt with everything that was going on in the United States, the Floyd case, the Ombre case, COVID-19, all the different things like that, that we really needed to talk about, that evil is out here and just having a time at us. And unless we as Christians do a revolution, and I'm talking about a peaceful revolution, I'm talking about showing Christ's love, I'm showing about leaning on the Holy Spirit and getting the power from Christ and getting the power that we need to do this and show people the love and the true meaning of Christianity, that we can really make change in this world. I was talking to a guy last night, and he was saying that, why can't we get a group of 200 Christian men together and go on? Look, I have no problem with these protests. I really do not. Protest is just a freedom of speech. This is, you could kind of call this a protest right now. Is now the time for a Christian revolution. You could probably put that down as I'm saying that I'm protesting against the evil that is in this world. Yes, I am, but it's a peaceful protest and it's a loving protest. And he said, why can't we get, 200 men and go down and walk in the peaceful protest and protect the places that they're going to loot? Well, I want to make sure that everybody's safe, but I understand what he's talking about, because when you do walk the streets, and we've seen this happen over and over and over again, we see it all the time in drug-infested neighborhoods, that people get out and walk the streets and show the love of God and talk to them about Christ. And it does change the neighborhood. It really does. It does have an effect on the neighborhood. So please go out and read this. Now, what I want you to do after you read it is please copy the link, the URL up in the address box. Copy that, go to your Facebook and paste it for us. Paste the post there to share it with your friends and family. We have been flagged by Facebook and they will not let us share it anymore. And the reason behind it has nothing to do with the Christian Revolution. I do not understand it at all. We're kind of dumbfounded by it. But we totally feel that this is attack, once again, on the church. Listen, and I'm not getting into the political portion of this. I'm just telling you what I observed and things that I saw and the things that bother me. But we shut down the churches in the COVID-19, but we allow our liquor stores to be open. We allow abortion places to be open because they call those essential. They now realize that the churches are essential also, and we need to open back up. So is this now the time for a Christian revolution? Please go out, read the blog, and take it and post it on your Facebook and share it with your friends and family. We want to get the word out that this is just something we feel really strong about. We also have our Facebook Live, 8 o'clock on Sunday night. Please come out. We talk about everything that's going on in the country and what we're seeing and how churches should be responding to it. We're really excited about that because it just kind of gives me an opportunity to rant. And I appreciate you listening to my rant. We also have our free resources. If you go out right now and go to the God Logic Project, we were just on last night talking about the aftermath, race relations, how do we fix these? I think that we need to take the term race out when we talk about relationships and how do we fix these. I think that I know that there is no race under God's eyes. He sees us as children and of God, of sons and daughters of God. He does not see color. There is no color in Christianity. So I think what we should be doing is looking for a way to get rid of that hate, get rid of that and work on it. And listen, I've been law enforcement all my adult life. You know that. And what I saw that happened in Minneapolis was a tragedy, an atrocity. And that person should be prosecuted to the fullest extent. You're not going to get me to say anything different than that. I just don't see it any other way. But it was the perfect storm. It was where a person who was doing something wrong got caught by the wrong person, and it was just the perfect storm. And we could talk about it. It's just there's a whole bunch of issues there. But we talked about last night, how do we bridge this gap again? I'm working with James Simmons. I'm working with Greg Heckrock. I'm working with Kevin Haggerty, and we're all talking about trying to get together on this. Simon Ossamon. I'm working with him and talking with him up in Minneapolis about what we can do to bring this back together. And one of the things that we're talking about, of course, is a Christian revolution. So please go out to, we have a YouTube page now. We have Trinity Security Allies YouTube page. You can go out and see our stuff, and also go to the God Logic Project, and you can see us being interviewed in reference to how do we bring this back together. We still have our resources out there. I was talking to Wendy. I found out we have 2 more. We're going to be putting those out hopefully very soon. These are free ebooks that you can pull down that talks about putting together a safety plan, developing a safety team, carrying weapons in the church, Sunday morning, what to look for. We are going to be working on putting together last Thursday's webinar, because when we looked at it and tried to just take a look at it before we put it out online, we saw that there was a lot of issues with the video. We found a way that we can put it out there, but it's going to take us a little bit. But we're going to put that out where we went and looked at the West Freeway Church of Christ shooting. We are doing memberships. And I think what you have to understand, where people might think that, hey, you're doing this free for us, on Thursday nights, why should I pay? Please understand that we are a nonprofit organization, and the only way that we survive is through donations. And we want to continue this and give you the best that we can. We want to continue this Thursday night. But there's like pieces of equipment that we need to purchase and things like that we need to do to help build the ministry. And we have people that we want to bring on board. But the only way that we can do that and sustain what we're doing right now is through your contributions and your donations. Ways to support us: you can pray. We have our membership. Our church memberships are $125 a month or $1,200 for the year. We also have an online membership program which we're extending. We're extending the deadline. We set it at 5/31 that we were going to go up to $25 a month. It is now at $20 a month. Well, you'll be able to get this training after the Thursday night, because we're going to put it on that page. So like I said, we can continue to do this. We're going to do weekly online training, and you'll have access to the video and the training video so that you can take it back after you look at it again and help your safety teams understand what is going on. When you join like this, you do get one ticket to the church safety conference that we're getting ready to do in October, and we're working on this. We've got a lot of stuff that we're thinking is going to happen. We're very excited about it, and there'll be more information on this as we get going. But we're really, truly excited about what's getting ready to happen here. We also do kind of a la carte training. We're hoping to get back into the churches real soon. We know that they're opening up. Our simulator, shoot, don't shoot simulator, or verbal de-escalation, I kind of want to make it that it does not have to be a person on your safety team that carries a weapon. There are certain things you need to be looking at and certain things you need to be paying attention to when you walk into a stressful situation. And this is what the training is. And of course, we do the training on how to set up safety teams and threat profiling, situational awareness. And donations. If you know of an organization that would like to file a 501c3 that would like to help us out, please let them know. It is a tax deduction. And we would like to be able to reach out to 90% of the churches that are out here across the United States that are under 500 members. And that's what we're looking to do, expand our training to everybody that needs it. Because I'm going to say this one more time. If I say it once, I'm going to say it 100. We're in a spiritual battle right now, and we're going to see more and more churches attacked. I hate to say it like that, and I'm not trying to be a fearmonger. I'm just saying we're seeing churches now that are being attacked, being vandalized, being burnt down, and people are now even putting graffiti on. This will keep you home, you hypocrites. So there's things out here going on. We need to do more training. I'm going to say this: if you carry a weapon, especially in this day and time, because you can see what happens if you have to protect yourself. If the police don't feel like you should have done what you did, it is really nice to have some sort of help in case you get into one of these situations. Friends of mine right now are jumping on this because of everything that is going on around here. Every time somebody just says the word boo, you got to be careful that somebody might not just take a shot at you. It is just that tense right now. Like I said, I don't want to scare you. I'm not got my house boarded up and my, a rifle in every window. Understand that. But I am watching the news and paying attention and having my family be smart. But one of the things that I think you need to really pay attention to is if you carry a concealed weapon, it would be nice to have some sort of protection. You do not drive your car without some sort of insurance in case you're involved in an accident. This is something you really need to take a look at. If you're interested in joining, please go to our webpage, look for the USCCA emblem on our webpage, click on it. We are affiliates of USCCA, and they treat us very well. They're very good to us. And they're good in a lot of different ways. They have excellent training. They have good magazines. They have a lot of good information that you get for your membership. Not only do you get the protection that you're looking at right here, but you also get a lot of good training material. I use their training material in our concealed weapon classes and also in the training that we do at churches. Are there anybody out there yet asking any questions?
We've had no questions tonight. Do you want to tell them what we're going to be doing next week?
We're going to continue this on how to create and start a safety team. We're going to be talking about things that you can take back to the church and say these incidences are happening around the country. We're going to go into a little bit of depth on some of the reasons why some of these incidents happened, and we're going to be talking about the importance of having one, especially in today's fallen world. And so that will be next week, next Thursday night.
Oh, we have one comment. Nope, maybe not. Nope, we do not.
Okay. Folks, we're going to close. And I just want to say just kind of a, little prayer here that, like I said, 1 Peter 5, 2 through 4. Please be your shepherds of your flock that is under your care, watching over them, not because you must, but because you're willing as God wants you to be. Not pursuing dishonest gains, but eager to serve, not lording it over those entrusted to you, but being examples to the flock. And when the chief shepherd appears, you will receive the crown of glory that will never fade away. Please be safe out there, be blessed, and we'll talk to you next week. Have a great night.